Hello and welcome to Total Dino, the podcast that asks, what's your favorite dinosaur? It's been a couple months since my last episode, and I guess I should apologize for that, but I can explain, and I will, and I'll even make it up to you with 6 new discoveries, because it's been a while, and there's been a lot of really crazy, cool new dinosaur stuff that's been going on. It's going to be a lot of cool dinosaurs, a lot of stuff to cover, but before I get into that, I'm going to give a shout out to my new patrons. These are Cretaceous tier patrons on Patreon, Jack Conte and Mr. Old Fusspot. Thank you guys very much for the support. That helps me make this podcast and make my other paleo art and videos and stuff. So let's get into the real situation here. So I just want to first explain what happened a couple months ago. So what I was doing was I was getting ready to record a new podcast and doing research and stuff, and the big topic was going to be this Edmontosaurus paper that had just come out. This was in October. So there was this big cool discovery about Edmontosaurus, which is one of the things I'm going to get into in a little bit, but I was going to make that the big topic of that podcast episode, and as I was, reading the paper and trying to make sure I had the info down so I knew what to say, then this big Nanotyrannus paper dropped, which, if you're listening to this, you probably know Nanotyrannus is a really big deal, and it was a really big paper, and that's the next one I'm going to cover. But anyway, so I was trying to get ready for this one Edmontosaurus paper, and then the Nanotyrannus paper came out, and I was just thinking, okay, maybe I can put these two papers into one episode, and basically I just kind of got overwhelmed. Before I record these episodes, I always try to do a lot of research on whatever I'm talking about, which is usually, a new dinosaur or a new scientific paper or whatever topic it is, and I tend to get too lost in the research, and when I sit down here to record, it's like it feels like really high stakes because whatever I say is going to be released on the internet forever. So I'm always really paranoid about saying something wrong or getting something off. So I was forcing myself basically to research these two papers really hard, or really deep and intensely. And I was trying to put out the episode really fast because I knew it was going to be interesting. There's going to be a lot of people that want to listen to it and listen to what I have to say and listen to what other YouTubers and podcasters have to say about it. So, long story short, I was getting myself really worked up and I just got totally overwhelmed. Sitting here for half an hour or so talking about dinosaurs seems like it should be fun and kind of easy. But I really just started to have almost like a panic attack, and I was like, nope, I just can't do it. I'm going to go back and sit down and draw some dinosaurs. Just going to draw. That's calming and easy. I like to draw. Back to the old drawing board, so to speak. So basically I just got overwhelmed and said, nope, can't do it. Hashtag mental health and all that. I was kind of just too freaked out to do any more podcasts. At that point, I was just put off from doing any research or recording unscripted in front of a microphone. Then I got into other stuff. I actually started these dino profiles, which you might have seen on YouTube. It's I'm just making these little 4 to 5 minute long sort of deep dives into individual dinosaurs. So anyway, that's another new project, so check that out. It's a lot more easy for me to produce because it's scripted and it doesn't feel live. I know this isn't live as you're listening to it, but it feels live talking into the microphone. So anyway, check out those dino profile videos on YouTube. They're cool. They're kind of the main thing I've been focusing on, but I figured I've let my brain calm down a little bit enough by now to try to catch up and try to make a new podcast episode. And so that is what I'm going to do. So let's go ahead and dive into it. And in the spirit of avoiding burnout and overwhelm, for the sake of mental health and everything, I am going to go through these sort of lightning round style, and I'm just going to talk about them from memory. I still generally look at the papers and kind of read what people are saying and read the articles. It's not like I'm completely ignoring it, but I'm not I'm not stressing my brain out just for the sake of a podcast here. So I'm going to just talk. If I say something that might be a little off, you're going to have to deal with it, or, correct me in the comments. If something sounds off, go ahead and check the comments and see if someone else has already corrected me. Give me a little bit of grace, because here I go. I'm just going to go just off the top of my head. So the first one that I wanted to talk about, as I mentioned, was this Edmontosaurus. This was in October. This is what I was going to record a whole episode about. Basically, this mummy was discovered, which isn't literally a mummy, but it's just a really well-preserved fossil with soft tissue, like skin and stuff like that. There's been a lot of these discovered in the past. A lot of times Edmontosaurus, in fact, but I guess it's just because there's just so many Edmontosauruses. They used to live in humongous herds, so it's rare for a fossil to preserve that well. But if there's just millions of individuals, you're going to get a couple. So this recent one, this past October, was really well preserved with parts of the body that had not been preserved before. I believe there was a lot of skin and scale impressions. There were ridges down the back, like the little like scales. Man, someone correct me in the comments. The large kind of spiky, like spikes on the back, were preserved. Edmontosaurus. I don't know if this one had the soft crest on top of its head. We already kind of knew about that. Edmontosaurus has a soft, fleshy crest on top of it. Not a bony crest, but like almost like a rooster has. So that's really, I don't remember if this one had it or not, but that was there. One of the big deals about this one was that it had hooves. That's what they were calling them anyway. They're basically, it had really huge toenails on the back of on its back feet. I know the front feet, the hand, the fingers almost kind of look like hooves also. So they kept calling it hooves. I'm not doing it justice. There was a lot more really cool stuff that's preserved that I'm not remembering that well because it's been a couple months, So anyway, really well preserved Edmontosaurus. Next, this is the one that I tried to combine with that podcast episode. It's the Nanotyrannus. This is definitely the biggest paper of the year in 2025. Probably one of the biggest, most important papers put out this decade. I mean, it's a really, really big deal in paleontology. So the story is basically Nanotyrannus. This was not a newly discovered dinosaur this year, but it was... they knew it existed. It's basically, it's a small tyrannosaur, and the big debate was, is it a juvenile Tyrannosaurus rex, or is it its own species or genus, just a smaller kind of tyrannosaur? There were fossils that have been known and studied, and just a raging debate for years and years now. And here and there, papers would be put out, oh, it's a juvenile T-Rex because of this and this. No, it's its own genus because of this and this. Whatever they were saying. And it's always really hard because with ontogeny, that is how the animals change as they grow. If you don't have the living animals to observe, you can't really tell, is it, does the snout get more robust as it matures? Because a baby of any animal looks different and weird, even proportionately from the adults. So, is it skinny and has proportionately long legs because it's a juvenile, or is it because it's actually a different type of animal? It's kind of like comparing, a Chihuahua and a Great Dane. I guess that's a bad example because they are the same species, but So that was the big debate that's been going on. And so then in October, this big paper came out that was basically saying, yes, Nanotyrannus is its own genus. It's related to Tyrannosaurus rex. It's a tyrannosaur. I don't remember exactly where it fits on the phylogeny there, but it's a tyrannosaur along with like Gorgosaurus, Albertosaurus, the whole tyrannosaur gang. So it's one of those. It's not a baby or a juvenile T-Rex. It's its completely own type, species or genus technically. It's its own whole type of dinosaur. The fossil that was studied was actually preserved in a really famous specimen called the dueling dinosaurs, which is it was this Nanotyrannus fighting a Triceratops. Really well preserved. It looks really cool. For a long time people were calling it the T-Rex versus the Triceratops, but now we know it's not a T-Rex, it's a Nanotyrannus. So a pretty well-known fossil, and they've been studying it. I think this paper they've been working on this paper for a pretty long time, so everyone kind of knew this was coming, like big news was coming soon, and it just dropped and blew up the paleosphere. So the paper obviously goes into all kinds of detail and stuff, but the basic point is Nanotyrannus is its own genus. It's official. The debate is effectively over. So, those are the two stories I was going to try to combine. Now, these are the next... I'm going to go through a couple that have just happened since then. So, then in December, I think right around Christmas, almost at the end of the year, a new Alvarezsaur was described, and that is Manipulonyx. Now, Alvarezsaurs, let me just explain real quick, are really small theropods. They've got small, long, skinny legs, and probably the most noticeable thing about them is their tiny little arms. You might have heard of Manipulonyx, which means one claw. That one has an appropriate name. Basically, the arms are so tiny, it looks like one claw sticking straight out of their chest. There's a handful of different genera with varying lengths of arms, but even the longest arms are very short, and they still have basically one claw. So basically, picture just a little theropod. They're mostly like under a meter in length, from nose to tail. Long, skinny legs. Picture like a roadrunner with tiny arms with like one claw sticking out. Now, the really specifics of their hands weren't totally understood until this one. So Manipulonyx, the name means manipulating claw, very much appropriately, preserved pretty much the entire arm and hand, I believe. And so again, the arms are extremely small, but it's still the ulna and the tibia and everything. So one theory about Alvarezsaurs was that they eat eggs, and they use this one big claw on their little arms to grab and grip eggs. And the big deal about Manipulonyx was that since it had such complete arms, they were able to figure out the biomechanics compared to the size of the eggs that this dinosaur would interact with, and basically prove that it could use its claws and its little elbows and wrists to grip an egg and crack it open to eat it. The opposing argument with Alvarezsaurs is that they're insectivorous, and they use these claws to like rip open termite mounds. If you've seen Prehistoric Planet, the first season, there's Mononychus. I think it's looking for ants or termites or something. So the more popular theory was the insect eating theory, but with Manipulonyx, the egg eating theory is now being taken much more seriously. There's a really cool diagram of how the arms grip the eggs if you want to look that up. So yeah, that was the cool one, and that was at the end of December. So next up was Ferenceratops. This one is one of those discoveries that just rearranges a whole part of the dinosaur family tree. So let me try to break this down here real quick. So ornithischians are the plant eaters. besides sauropods. Within the ornithischians, you've got the ornithopods, which are kind of the little bipedal ones that evolved into hadrosaurs. Within that group is a group called the rhabdodontids. So they're relatively basal ornithopods. They sort of came before like iguanodontids. So picture kind of like a small bipedal iguanodon. That's what rhabdodontids are, or what they were thought to be. Within those, there's one genus called Zalmoxes. Okay, so stick with me. Remember that. Another whole group of ornithischians is the ceratopsians. You know these guys. They're the triceratops. The horns, the frills. Ceratopsians. Their basal members are smaller, bipedal. If you're familiar with Leptoceratops, that's kind of the earlier ceratopsians. So, Zalmoxes is this one genus in the Rhabdodontidae. This genus actually used to have two species. So within a genus, there's species. That's a whole thing I'll talk about some other time. But Zalmoxes robustus is the kind of main holotype type species. Sorry. And there was another one whose name is a total beast. I'm going to say this wrong, but it's Zalmoxes scipirorum. I actually think that's the first time I've ever tried to say it out loud. So anyway, this paper was kind of analyzing that species, Zalmoxes scipirorum, and it basically found that this was not an ornithopod, but a basal ceratopsian. This type of thing happens from time to time, mostly because the fossil remains are scant, and with such small parts of the body, it's hard to really figure out, the specifics. The more of a skeleton we have, the easier it is to tell. But I think there was only a jawbone that they had to go by. So basically, this species that was classified as a rhabdodontid ornithopod has been found to be a basal ceratopsian. Now, without getting too much into it, it sort of calls into question the entire rhabdodontid family. Are all rhabdodontids ceratopsians? It seems like maybe, but basically what they did for now was they renamed Zalmoxes scipirorum to Ferenceratops scipirorum. So what usually happens is they change the genus name, but it keeps the species name in a situation like this. So it used to be Zalmoxes, which is a fairly well-known ornithopod, and now it's a ceratopsian. So almost the entire body, the way you'd imagine it, is just a totally different animal, except I guess the shape of the jaw is the same. I hope I'm explaining it well enough, but that's the basic gist of that one. It seems like it might be possible that all the rhabdodontids are actually within the ceratopsians, which would be a really weird evolutionary situation. Or maybe I'm misrepresenting what it was. Okay, on to the next one. So this was also in January. This one is Xenovenator. Xenovenator was a troodontid. This is a newly discovered genus, another new dinosaur. Troodontids are bird-like theropods, really close to dromaeosaurs. They're not within the Dromaeosauridae, but they are paraves, which means they're really close to birds. They basically look like dromaeosaurs, if you could picture, Velociraptor and all those guys. They've got feathers. Troodontids even have the sickle toe claw. So, it's a separate group, but that's basically what they look like. So the cool thing about Xenovenator is it's a troodontid, but it has a bony dome on top of its head. I'm going to let that sink in. Bony dome on top of its head of a troodontid. Now, what comes to mind when you think of a dinosaur with a bony dome on its head? Yeah, I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm thinking pachycephalosaurs. The ones that bang their heads together like rams, you know, fighting for a mate or fighting over territory or whatever. Um, Obviously, we don't exactly know why they had these or what they were doing, but pretty much everyone agrees they were banging their heads, or at least banging, hitting each other on the sides of their bodies. Using their heads as battering rams for whatever reason. And we're kind of used to thinking about pachycephalosaurs like that, but Xenovenator is, again, a troodontid, so it's, really close to a bird. It's got hollow bones and all that. It seems kind of fragile, but it's got this Pachycephalosaurus dome on its head, so it really, obviously, we don't actually know about their behavior, but it really looks like they might have been banging their heads together the same way Pachycephalosaurs do. So this is something we've never seen before in theropods. So yeah, just another really crazy new discovery for 2026, coming out hard with the weird dinosaurs. And last but not least, speaking of weird dinosaurs, this was just in the past week or so, this dinosaur called Haolong. Now, Haolong is a hadrosauroid, which means it's an ornithopod, more derived than the iguanodontids, but not quite a hadrosaur. So it basically looks like an iguanodon. But the weird thing about Haolong is that it has like porcupine quills. I think they made a really big point that they're not feathers on this ornithischian. That they definitely weren't feathers. I believe they grew kind of out of the scales. I don't know the specifics of how they grow, but the fossil preserved it really well. You can see it if you look it up online. It basically just looks like porcupine quills. We know about similar stuff in like heterodontosaurs and more basal ornithischians. So this is one of the more derived. This might be, one of the most derived ornithischians that we know of with something like this. So yeah, I don't really know the specifics of what constitutes a feather. At this point they've evolved in all kinds of weird ways, but it looks like quills. It looks like porcupine quills. It's an iguanodon with porcupine quills. That's what it looks like. But the individual in this paper was a juvenile. I think it was about 2.5 meters long, and they can tell that it's a juvenile, so it probably grew to be larger, and it's very possible that it lost the quills. This is the type of thing, ontogeny isn't just the skeletal structure, it's all kinds of, integument and stuff. Sometimes baby animals, it's theorized that baby, like T-Rexes, had downy feathers, and they lost them as they grew up. So this could be something like that, or maybe the adults had quills. We have no idea. All we have is a juvenile with porcupine quills. So that is the last weird dinosaur discovery this year that's come out in the past couple months. So there we go. That's it. Again, sorry about the absence for the past couple months. And I hope you were able to keep up and make sense of my lightning round here. Let me know in the comments and everything, like, subscribe, do all that. If you want me to produce more of these podcasts, I don't know the next time I'm going to make a podcast. I never made a promise that it's going to be weekly or monthly or anything, so kind of sorry, not sorry. But if you want more, Patreon's a good way to keep me going. Check it out at patreon.com/totaldino. I also make paleo art of dinosaurs and YouTube videos talking about them. If you want to support me on Patreon, you can request stuff. All that good stuff, all the goodies. Also, if you want to be on this podcast, you can send me a voice message. If you go to speakpipe.com/totaldino, there's a big button that says start recording, and you can just tell me your favorite dinosaur just with your voice. And I will, whatever you want to say, assuming it's appropriate and relevant, I will put you straight into the next episode. So, tell me your favorite dinosaur, or just talk about dinosaurs if you want. Speakpipe.com/TotalDino. It goes straight into an inbox. It's easy for me to pick up, and lots of good stuff. You can be on the podcast. Or if you want to talk to me directly, I'm pretty easy to find. My social medias are all out there, at TotalDino. Or if you go to TotalDino.com/Discord, that will redirect you straight into my Discord channel. And, I'm pretty active there. Or, find me somewhere, comment on something. You can find my email on the website. You know how the internet works. Like, subscribe, check it out. And let me know if you didn't like this lightning round format. I just kind of blasted through it because I didn't want to spend any time preparing, because I didn't want to burn out and stress myself out. So let me know if this was too fast or too annoying, or if you actually liked it. That's cool too. That's it. So thanks again for listening to Total Dino, the podcast that asks, what's your favorite dinosaur?